Good afternoon. Thank you guys all for being here today, and we're going to provide some additional details on the officer-involved shooting that we had on August 30th. Before we do that, I just want to thank the community and the media for being patient with us over the last 48 to 72 hours and allow us to do our investigation, interview our officers, review body cam footage, and listen to 911 calls and kind of process all the information before we provide you with the best information we have today. So just wanted to say thank you to everybody for being patient with us. So on August 30th of 2020 at 1:37 a.m., our officers responded to a man with a rifle call. The location of the officer-involved shooting was at 1185 Herndon at Walmart, which is located at Clovis and Herndon. The photo to my left here will show you a photograph of the scene. This photo is an aerial photo that was taken the next morning, kind of shows you the setup of the vehicles at the scene. Our officers' vehicles along with the involved subject's vehicle there, the silver vehicle. The time of the officer-involved shooting occurred at 11:44 a.m. Officers involved in the shooting, there were 6 total officers that fired their weapons. Their experiences ranged from 9 months to 20 years of experience as police officers. None of these officers have been involved in a prior officer-involved shooting while with our department. I also want to note that our department has not had a officer-involved shooting since July of 2016. All of our officers that were involved in the shooting were wearing body cameras, and they were activated during the incident. 4 officers fired 6-hour MCX rifles. 2 officers fired Glock Model 22 pistols. Shots were fired from a distance ranging from approximately 30 to 55 yards. And there was a total of 15 rounds fired during this incident. 9 of those rounds were fired from the MCX rifle and 6 from the Glock 22 pistols. No officers fired more than 3 rounds. No individual officer. The involved individual in this incident was a Nicholas Frazier. He was a 26-year-old white male from Clovis. Out of respect for his family, we're not going to be showing a photograph of him today. So typically we would show a photograph, but we're going to respect the family's wishes and not do that. Frazier's weapon was a Daisy model number 111B air gun with a 15-inch barrel. And that's photographed is here of the weapon that was involved. Frazier's history, as far as criminal history, he had no known criminal record and no criminal interaction with the Clovis Police Department. As far as the details of the officer-involved shooting, on Sunday morning, August 30th at 1:37 a.m., the Clovis Police Department Dispatch Center received a 911 call regarding a male with a rifle in the Walmart parking lot. The call was originally routed to CHP and then transferred to our dispatch center. The caller reported a male with a rifle was in the parking lot. He described the male as wearing a white t-shirt and dark shirts near a SUV. During the 911 call, the caller described the weapon as a rifle with a really long barrel. The caller identified himself to the dispatchers as Nicholas Frazier, who was later identified as a person that was shot by our officers. Clovis police officers were dispatched to respond and arrived in the area within 3 minutes at 1:40 a.m. We will now play the 911 call that was placed by Mr. Frazier.
911 emergency, what are you reporting? CHP transferred Herndon and Clovis for a male with a possible rifle. I'm sorry, what's the location? Herndon and Clovis, caller?
Yeah, it's at the Walmart at Herndon and Clovis.
Okay, is he inside or outside?
He's walking around in the parking lot.
Okay, and is he pointing it at anybody or?
Not at the moment. It's pretty much dead out here. I'm pretty good distance away, but I can pretty much tell that he's carrying some sort of rifle.
Do you have a description on him?
He's wearing, it looks to be a white shirt and dark-colored shorts. He's a white male.
White male adult, and I'm sorry, what is he wearing, a white shirt?
Yeah.
And what else?
Looks to be some sort of dark-colored shorts.
And he's on foot, correct?
Yes.
Do you know if he's associated to any vehicle?
It looks to be that there's a car near him with the door open.
What kind of vehicle?
I can't tell from here. It's too far away. It looks to be some sort of SUV, though.
Do you see anybody else?
No, I don't.
And where in the parking lot is he?
Looks to be at the far left entrance of the Walmart if you're looking straight on at it.
So far left entrance, is it closer to which side?
The west side.
Okay. And closer to like the front, the middle, where exactly?
He looks to be in the middle of the parking lot.
And you don't see anybody else there with him?
No, I don't.
Can I get your name?
My name is Nicholas Frazier.
At this point, a sergeant and police officer were the first to arrive on scene. Upon exiting their vehicles, they began a dialogue with Mr. Frazier. The sergeant who leads our crisis negotiation team attempted to speak with Mr. Frazier. He told him, quote, "drop the gun," but Mr. Frazier did not comply. During the dialogue, the sergeant told Frazier that he wanted to help him and nobody wanted to harm him. The sergeant said, "Let us help you, Mr. Frazier," but he said, "Let us help you." Mr. Frazier replied, "No." Additional units began arriving on scene. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds, the officers attempted to negotiate with Mr. Frazier and encourage him to put down the weapon, which he did not comply. At 1:44 a.m., Mr. Frazier raised the rifle and pointed it at the officers, and 6 officers fired their weapons. Mr. Frazier, he was struck, which caused him to fall to the ground. Our officers quickly approached Mr. Frazier and attempted life-saving measures. They immediately requested emergency medical services. Officer continued life-saving measures until the arrival of American ambulance. Mr. Frazier was transported to CRMC, where he later died. Officers secured the scene and investigators were contacted and responded. This case is being investigated by our investigations unit along with the Fresno County District Attorney's Office. I'd also like to thank Chief Andy Hall and Sheriff Margaret Mims for multiple officers responding and assisting with our scene, securing the perimeter, and also responding to calls that night while we were dealing with this scene. We will now show the body cam footage that led up to the officer-involved shooting. Please be aware that if you are watching the news conference on a live stream, that some of this footage may be disturbing, so just take that into consideration. Also, a few notes when you're watching the body cam footage. In the videos, you're going to hear the officer that's responding initially. If you listen in the background, you'll actually hear the 911 call live, the officer hearing it as he's responding to the call. It's something that we've recently deployed with some of our officers for the last few months. So you actually hear that call we just played being played on the officer's computer as he's responding to the scene. We also there was various body cam footages, so we took the best viewpoints. So you'll see about 3 different viewpoints transition through, but we'll maintain one audio perspective the entire way through. So just keep that in consideration as you're watching it.
Looks like he went back into his car, but he's just standing at the door. Okay. Is he still standing, or did he actually go and sit in it?
He's standing right outside the door.
He should be towards the entrance that's open. He'll be standing near a dark-colored SUV that has the doors open. And what officers that are going on scene? Do you see them? All right.
not yet.
You don't?
I see one coming right now.
You see one coming now? He appears to be taking on the phone, so has the rifle in his hand.
Drop the gun! What's going on, man?
Channel 1 code 33, 81 line of fire.
Line of fire to the north.
Line of fire to the north.
Okay, hurry up. What's going on, man? Talk to us. Come on, man. We don't want to do this. Come on, brother. Help us out, dude. Nobody wants to hurt you, man. Let us help you. Why not? Why not? Come on, man. Okay. Just be careful. Come on, man. Just drop the weapon, please. Please drop the gun, man. Get ready, get ready. Drop it, man. Drop it. Come on, don't do it, dude. Don't do it, brother. Don't do it, man. Come on, man. Drop the gun, brother. Come on. Nobody wants to hurt you. Put it down, dude. Come on, man. He's getting close. Close. Come on, dude. Put it down, brother. Please. Put it down, man. He's getting ready. Drop the gun, brother. Drop it. Please drop it. That's it. Come on, man. That's it. Drop the gun! Come on, man. We don't want to hurt you. Drop the gun! Fuck. All right. You good? All right, let's move up. Take EMS. Get your bag. Get your bag, please.
So, I just wanted to give my condolences as the police chief to the Fraser family. We met with them this morning and showed them this entire presentation prior to meeting with the media today, just out of respect for the family. So just keep that in mind as you guys are putting your stories together. Just to try to respect the family during this time as they process through this. I also wanted to just provide some comments about my officers. I think dealing with a tremendously tough situation, they did an amazing job showing restraint, trying to encourage him to put the weapon down for over 2 minutes and 45 seconds. At one point, you'll see one of the officers had retreated behind his vehicle because the subject had turned with the rifle towards his direction. So instead of firing, I think they showed great restraint, and when they end up having to use lethal force, they use the minimal force and stop shooting as soon as they possibly could. So I just want to make those comments before I open it up for any questions to the media.
So Fraser just raised the gun. He never fired at the officers.
I don't have that information at this time. It was we found out later it was a BB gun, so it was not a real gun. He pointed it in the direction of the officers, and at that point they discharged their firearms. No, and that's the part of the investigation that's still ongoing. We truly don't know why this happened. That's the answers I think that we're looking for, and as well as the family is trying to determine exactly what led to him placing that call to the police department, having us come there and presenting our officers with the situation where they didn't really have a choice to not shoot. And we're really not sure why that happened.
Do you have any idea if he may have been under the influence of drugs or alcohol at the time?
Currently, right now, the autopsy is being done by the coroner's office, so I think we'll have that information later. We don't have that now. As far as how many times he was struck by the shots, I don't know that information as well. That is all being conducted currently today.
What was the conversation? It was hard to hear. Was he saying no when they were begging him to drop the gun?
Yeah, a few times he said no and wouldn't give a response to or try to communicate with the officers. There was just no communication other than no, and that was it. Initially, there is some other footage. He's holding the rifle initially when he's calling 911. When our officers get on scene, at one point when you see the officer retreat behind his car, that's when he grabs it with both hands. So the officer retreated, and then at the point when he turns and puts the weapon up is when he was actually the time they discharged their weapons.
Can you explain how tough it is to tell the difference between like this BB gun and what an actual rifle could be, around this time of night?
Well, it's difficult. It's darkness. It's 1:30 in the morning. They're at 55 yards when our officers were responding to this call. I haven't personally spoken or heard their statements, but I'm assuming in their mind as officers, as we respond to calls, we start thinking about how to respond, what tactics we're going to use. If somebody has a rifle, you need to have some distance because you know that you can be hurt seriously really quick with a rifle. So I'm assuming the distance they were at was 55 yards to 30 yards, so they kept some distance because of that. So it make it very extremely difficult to tell if that was not truly a real rifle, especially when the person making the phone call to us is explaining it and describing it as a rifle.
And you said that was actually him that was making it?
That's correct. The person that placed the 911 call was the person that we ultimately end up having to shoot.
When there is a situation like this where you have so many officers involved, they placed on administrative leave. So can you take me through the next process and what that means for the police department in general when you have so many different officers that are involved in a shooting like this?
So typically that's why we're not able to give press conference or statements immediately, because we have to interview these officers. And if I came out here today 10 minutes, 30 minutes after this incident happened and provided you all with this information, it would taint the investigation. So it took us over 48 hours just to get the officers home, get them some sleep, bring them back here so we could interview them. They could have an attorney present with them as part of the process. And then we have to, investigators have to get sleep, they're up investigating, and then finally get all the details together. So typically 48 to 72 hours we'll have that information. All 6 of these officers that fired their weapons are placed on administrative leave with pay, and that's standard. It's not only for the part of the investigation, it's also to allow them time to process this. Nobody comes in this job expecting they're going to have to, we know that's a potential, but nobody ever wants to use force, deadly force against anybody. So all of them is having to process this and deal with this now that they've taken somebody's life. So the process is, it just depends on how each individual officer is able to process and deal with that before we'll bring them back to work. We want to make sure they're good and they're in a good place before we bring them back and put them on the street.
And the actual shooting scene there at Walmart, it was, over 12 hours that area was closed off so that investigators could do their job, right?
That's correct. Yeah, typically, especially when it's at night, we want daylight to come up so we can see if there's any additional casings or any other areas that were struck by rounds that we need to process that evidence. So typically, it's going to take 12 to 24 hours depending on how many rounds were shot or how big the scene is and that kind of stuff. So this one did take about 12 hours to process.
So based on the call that he made prior, do you feel
Absolutely. I believe at this point it was probably his intention for our officers to respond and for him to point the weapon at him, for them to shoot him. We don't know why that happened or what happened earlier in the day or earlier in the week that led him to this, and that's what we're trying to determine right now. Trying to work with the family and also process evidence, computer evidence, to see if there's anything that might lead us to what led him to do this.
Chief, with so many officers now being off, does this affect you guys with having to move people around or extend people's shifts right now?
Actually, we're pretty good. The night of the shooting, we put out an all page basically asking for people to come in, and that's when Fresno PD and the Sheriff's Department came over and kind of plugged the holes for us until we could get people in. But within an hour, we probably had, I'd say, 15 additional officers that came from home, no questions asked, and took the streets, or they were detectives responding as part of the team. The DA's office, they have an officer-involved shooting team that they send out, and they were there within less than an hour as well. So just really that first hour was the critical time of needing some assistance until we were able to get additional officers. But as far as filling those shifts as we go forward, we'll be good to fill that out.
You could see Frazier start to come towards the officers, but it's a little bit hard to see. Any idea how close he was at the end when the shots were fired?
Right now, the approximate is because the officer's positioning. There was multiple officers when you see that first photo, and I think you guys all get a copy of that. They're kind of fanned out, so depending on where they were at, some were within 30 yards and some were up to 55 yards away from him. So ultimately, when the shots happened, that was the range of the distance they were.
There was at least one other business, I believe, that was struck by gunfire. Do you guys know if how many places in the area were hit?
Yeah, there was 3 businesses struck. I believe Walmart, there was a round that struck some stucco. The Sally's Beauty Supply, I think there was 2 rounds that went through a window into that business. And then a business next door, which I believe was some type of nail salon, that was also struck by a round.
Any further questions for the chief?
I guess just the process of going through this is very pretty traumatic for all of the officers that were involved. Not that it's something you never want to go through, but just how mentally this can really affect the people that were involved, and just how the feelings about the overall situation.
I think it's traumatic for everybody. The Frazier family, our officers' families, they're all trying to process this right now. As a department, as the chief, it's difficult for me. I'm watching body cam footage of people that I work with on a daily basis having to take somebody's life, and it's difficult to see. And it's tough, especially with all the things going on in the nation today. That knowing that our officers would go their entire career and hoping they would never have to take somebody's life, but you would not know that today if you listen to some of the comments in nationwide media. So I can only speak for us here in Clovis, and I know my officers did everything they could in this situation to try to prevent this turning into a deadly force, use of force.
You guys did you reached out to the family and were able to talk to them, and I know you might not be able to speak on how they were doing, but was that a positive meeting?
Yeah, I think all our interactions with the Frazier family has been good. Obviously, it's a tough situation. We're trying to make it as best we can to be as transparent and provide any information they need. And we met with them that night that this incident, or that morning this incident happened. We also met with them this morning, and answered any questions they had. Wanted to provide all this so they didn't have to see it when it was aired on the media, but could see it firsthand and ask us any questions if they had any. And I think just like any loss, it's going to take time to grieve for them, and honestly for our department and our officers to make it through this situation.
Are you guys able to look at Walmart surveillance, like the parking lot, to see how long he was there and like what he was possibly
We do have some surveillance video from Walmart. It's not the best. We were going to show that today, but it's really grainy video. Really just shows him kind of driving through. It shows him standing outside of his vehicle while he's making the call to our dispatchers, and then kind of waiting for the officers to arrive. But other than that, that's the only video we're able to obtain.
Did he leave any notes by any chance?
Yeah, we haven't found anything to lead us to a reason why he did this. We've looked for that at his residence. We've also we're in the process of trying to process any digital evidence. I know that was something we're working on. I'm not sure if that's been completed and if we found anything at this point. I haven't heard that we have any reason behind why this happened. All right. Well, thank you guys. I appreciate it.